Hello, community. I wanted to spend some time today in a short video to share with you this concept of separating out our body, our emotions, and our language. Those three domains, because we've been focusing on developing an awareness, and awareness can be broken down into these three levels. Let me show you a diagram to explain what I'm talking about here. As human beings, we have our body, our emotions, and our language, and they cannot be separated. So, in other words, what happens in our emotions often shows up in our body. And what happens in a situation, and then the language that we use to talk to ourselves about it or to explain it, affects how we feel about it. And that also affects how we feel in our body. Now, I want to give us a kind of an anchor point of centeredness. So you can see down at the bottom of this diagram, it says centeredness is the body is without tension. So just sit for a moment and feel your body and notice where there is tension. Okay, if you are truly centered, there is no tension in your body. Your emotions are at peace. So there's a neutralness or neutrality to your emotions. And then your language is silent. So in your mind, you don't have an inner dialogue that's playing in the background. So we have our body that is without tension, our emotions are neutral, and our language is silent. And that is true centeredness. Well, how often are we at true centeredness? That is definitely a discipline that I would recommend that you consider working on, finding that place of centeredness and being able to call on it. It took me about 3 months of practicing a centering practice to actually learn how to be able to call myself. And I didn't say calm, but to call myself to this place of centeredness. And so what I needed to do is I needed to be aware, one, that I'm not centered. I could feel it in my emotions, or I could hear it in my language. My mind was wrapping stories, or I could feel it in my body. And so through a regular practice, and I will share it with you here in the community. I'll share it with you with a PDF at the end of this video of what I actually did for 3 months, practiced for 3 months to find myself this place of centeredness. Now, let me share with you a couple of authors who write about this sort of thing. Each one of these authors has their area of specialization. So when we're talking about the body, now Louise Hay, she wrote a book called Heal Your Body, You Can Heal Your Life, author of You Can Heal Your Life. And she talks about, she actually lists in this book causes for some of these physical ailments. Okay, she is one of the front runners. And also, maybe you've heard of Jon Kabat-Zinn. I love this book, Full Catastrophe Living. Jon Kabat-Zinn. This is not a quick read by any stretch of the imagination, but he says using the wisdom of your body and your mind to face stress, pain, and illness. And so Jon Kabat-Zinn is a great also a great resource for the whole body and mind combination. And then we have Dan Newby and Curtis Watkins. Curtis just passed away recently. Dan Newby is still living, but this is a field guide to emotions. And in this, they have actually unpacked certain emotions to understand what we think or what we say, how it impacts us, how the emotion can get in the way, and things that we often confuse emotions with. So the Field Guide to Emotions, and Dan also wrote this book, The Unopened Gift, and it's a primer in emotional literacy. So we have those two gentlemen. And then we have Robert Keegan and Lisa Leahy, who wrote this book, How the Way We Talk Can Change the Way We Work. And they focus on how language and how the narrative that we create creates our reality, right? So those three concepts, if our body is impacting our emotions are impacting our body, our narrative, what we tell ourselves, is impacting our body. Our emotions come from an external stimulus. Something happens and we react emotionally. Oftentimes then we make sense of that emotion because of what we believe to be true, right? So these three areas, body, emotion, language, are all wrapped up in one another. So let me share my screen one more time here just to show you. I'll just use the example of the word frustration. Okay, so here we've got Louise Hay. Okay, and she talks about how your body dispositions predispose you. So, for example, she says stomach problems are often dread, fear of something new, the inability to assimilate something new. Okay, so when you think about frustration, where do you feel frustration in your body? Do you feel it in your neck? Do you feel it in your shoulders? If you feel it in your neck, she says that stiff neck or neck problems are grounded in unbending bullheadedness. Okay, so frustration, if you're feeling that in your neck, unbending bullheadedness, hop over to the language, the story that we create around frustration. Things like, well, that should already have happened, or that should never have happened, right? Unbending bullheadedness. Do you see how they respond to each other, or how they are linked to each other? And then the emotional, if you look up the word frustration, it's a feeling of being upset or annoyed, especially because of the inability to change or achieve something. So our language might be telling us, I really don't like the fact that I can't change this, and so I am frustrated, right? And then that frustration, you feel it in your body and you create some language around it. So you see how these body, emotions, and language all work together. So one of the things that my clients experience when I work with a client in coaching is I listen for emotional cues. I listen for phrases or ways of thinking as cues. And I also ask questions about, where do you feel that in your body? Because oftentimes what we do is we try to solve a problem. I think it was Einstein who says that we try to solve problems with the same tools that created it, right? And which, if you try to use the same tools that created the problem, you can't get out of that vicious circle. And so the idea here is to notice what's going on in your body and to use that as a domain of learning. What are the narratives or the stories that you're telling yourself, your language, and how is that somehow blocking your ability to engage new possibilities? And then the body, the language, and the emotions. How are your emotions? What could you learn from those emotions? So really using the body, the emotions, and the language all as domains of learning. So what does this mean in terms of awareness, right? If we've been focusing on developing awareness, what does this mean for developing awareness? Well, it's taking us a step further. So instead of just paying attention and noticing in general, now I want to encourage you to notice things more specifically. What are the emotions that are happening? What am I telling myself? Where am I feeling it in my body. And Louise Hay, she said, if you hear yourself saying something 3 times, write it down. It has become a pattern for you. And you can do the same thing. Notice where your emotions seem to come up, or where your emotions are, what emotions you're feeling. So again, this whole idea of paying attention to your body, your emotions, and your language is a domain of learning. And then when you come to coaching sessions, we use those 3 domains to help you get unstuck, because sometimes you're just, you come with a particular issue, and if you just keep hammering at it from the same perspective or the same point of view, it becomes an immovable object. Okay, so this is the importance of developing awareness, but even more specifically, developing the awareness of what's happening in your body, what are your emotions telling you, and what is the language, the stories, the narratives, the inner dialogue. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about this concept. As you watched this video, what did you hear that made you go, I hadn't thought about it that way before? Or what did you hear that you said, I am going to pay attention to that. I think there might be something in there for me. As leaders, we must be aware at all times. If we are not aware, we cannot be intentional. And if we are not intentional, then the leadership that we are practicing is less effective. So, having said all that, I look forward to engaging you here in the community. I hope to see some of you at the leadership seminar, where we're going to unpack the body, the emotions, and the language, and get practices for all 3 of those. And then look for the PDF around how to develop your centering practice, and give that a try and see what you might develop there. All right, we'll look forward to seeing you in the community. Thanks for tuning in today. Have a great day. Bye-bye now.